Gary, welcome to Reveel'd. It's good to have you.
Hi, Gavin. Thank you for having me. Appreciate you.
So we're here today to talk about your short film, A Good Man, which, I had a chance to see on Reveal. I want you to tell us in your words what the film is about to our audience.
Well, the film is, at its core, a story about doing the right thing and suffering the consequences. So the plot of the film is basically we follow this young man named Hector on his way home from work. He's waiting for the train at the metro station. He witnesses a mugging taking place, and he decides to intervene. And as a consequence, he's being into a coma. The other part of the story involves a detective who wants to use this machine called a memory imager. And basically, the way it works is this machine you hook up to your brain, like using a skull cap, and it scans your memories, and you can play them back as if you're watching a DVD. And this detective, Zapata, he wants to use the machine to figure out, what happened the night, to solve the crime. And so at the end, the line between memory and reality is blurred because we see these memories on the screen happening, and the detective's trying to figure out, is this really what happened, or is this something that just he made up in his imagination?
It's really interesting because one, if first when it opens on that train shot, I thought, man, I admire filmmakers that are willing to sit and literally wait for the train to come in so that they can get the perfect shot. And then when I realized it was the metro station, it's like, okay, the train's coming more frequently than just tracks somewhere. But still, that's one of the things that independent film I feel sometimes gets lost. People make, the more contained it is, like, because you could have contained this all to the hospital if you wanted to, but going out into the world and getting those shots and showing us some scope, like that's a simple trick where, hey, let's get on the other side of the tracks, let's wait for the perfect shot when the train rolls through. It adds such incredible production value and scope to an indie film on an indie budget. Another thing I really liked about the look of this film is sort of the color palette. It's got this sort of lifted shadows, kind of lighter, less contrasty hue. Like, when you're choosing that look, is that something you're choosing in the beginning of your creative process, knowing that that's what you're going for? Or is that something you decided to play with in post?
It was definitely part of pre-production. I do remember talking to my cinematographer. Shout out to him, David Rivera. We were talking about what the look was going to be like, and I remember sharing some references with him. This happened. We made this film so long ago that I don't remember all of them. The one that I do remember that pops out to this day is Children of Men. I remember watching that film, and I told him I wanted it to look kind of grainy like that, and the colors muted uh, during what was supposed to be real life, and that we would change the look when we were going into the memories so that we could see the contrast between the two.
On a similar note, this is a Good Man is a really good example of like a huge sci-fi concept, but limited to only a key number of sort of visual effects, and it really is just a great human story in the way that like Black Mirror does it as well, where you're presenting this life altering concept of this machine and device that can review memories, but you have to do it knowing your budget. You don't have the unlimited sort of streaming service budget. So is that again something that you're planning from day one in the writing, like not limiting yourself creatively, but just making sure that you plan a way that you can execute it without sort of having to take a very expensive approach to production?
Um, I had no limits in terms of when I was writing the script. I'm gonna just wait for that helicopter to finish.
You're good.
Um, when I was writing the script, in terms of the memories, there was no limit. I wanted to see how far I could take these memories, what I call embellished memories, memories that like were rooted in fact, but that the mind and the imagination has a power to expand upon. And so some of those we actually shot and they didn't actually make it into the film. And for example,
Hmm.
during when he's going through cardiac arrest, and no spoiler alert for the viewers who haven't seen it yet, but there's a series of embellished memories that he has, and one of them is we see him inside the amniotic sac as a fetus about to being born.
Oh
And we
wow.
shot that on a sound stage, and it was a POV from the fetus, and all you see is the hands going like this, pushing up against the wall. We try to shoot that practically instead of using CGI.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't quite work out the way I had envisioned it, so that didn't make the cut. And then another big one was he has this memory of the protagonist Hector. He has a memory of speaking with his father at the border, the U.S. Mexico border, at the actual fence. And we built a fence and we shot it in Irvine Regional Park because there's a little creek. And when they touch hands through the fence,
Mm-hmm.
it causes a chain reaction and the fence collapses and you see a domino effect all the way to the horizon.
Oh wow.
And that was a tough day of shooting. We had some logistical challenges
Mm-hmm.
that made the scene not work as well as I wanted it to, and so that was cut. So to answer your question, I wanted to take the advantage of the fact that like our memories and our imaginations, there's really no limit to what they can do, and so I try to capture that. And that was one of the big learnings of making the film, is that like just because it's on paper doesn't mean it's going to be exactly going to translate onto the screen the way I had envisioned it.
But you did the right thing by, cutting out the things that weren't going to translate. Because I do find when I watch films at festivals or indie films, sometimes I'm like, really 100-minute feature film, and like, and then you watch it and you're like, I can easily see 10 or 15 minutes that maybe could have been removed and strengthen the movie overall. But the heartache as a filmmaker myself. You go, they know how much they spent on every second of that movie, and it probably pained them too much to cut it out. And somewhere in their head, they convince themselves it's fine. We'll leave it in. The audiences will get it. And it's one of the real strengths of creativity and bettering yourself as a filmmaker is knowing when something's not working story wise or practically or technically, and saying, even though we spent all this time and money and hard work to do it, it's got to go. It's a weird industry because it's not like you build a 3-story house. Rarely does somebody come in and say, you know what, I don't like the second floor anymore. Let's chop out the second floor and just have a first and a third floor. It's a very painful experience to have to cut anything out that you've put so much hard work into. But I mean, those scenes, you describing them sound amazing, and they're sort of those things I wish I could have seen in the film. But if you tell me it makes
Me
a
too.
better film sort of without them, then that's the way. Because again, me as the audience, not knowing those scenes were ever going to be there, I don't feel we're missing anything.
Right.
And it's true. Also, the brevity is the soul of wit, as one William Shakespeare once said. The shorter a short film, sometimes the more beneficial it is to the audience to just sort of like get in, experience the world, and come out of it. I really like the you had like a duality, meaning to fight for his life. He's literally, there's cardiac arrest. You already said it, so it's not a spoiler anymore. And then what's happening in his memories and the fight that's happening with the antagonist of the story. I just like that you found such a perfect analogy in these two worlds, the memory world and in real life, that these things are happening at the same time. Is that sort of thematically what you wanted to bring out of the film, this idea of fighting for your life, fighting for what's right?
Most definitely. And so, when I was writing the script, I remember at one point having a discussion with my editor, very talented editor named Jonathan Malin. Maybe you've seen his other work. He just put out a movie called Summertime that just premiered last week, actually. And I remember telling him, like, I wanted a double climax. So a climax going on in the memory world, while at the same time a climax going on in
Mm-hmm.
our real-time world. And that's what we try to do. And I think because he's so talented, he was able to pull that off. And so we see all the events leading up in the memory, and his memories, to him confronting the muggers through the memory imager, while at the same time his body in the hospital, and he's in the ICU, is going through this cardiac arrest. And so he's literally trying to
Mm-hmm.
fight his way through the memories, through his subconscious, so that his physical body doesn't die in that ICU.
Is the spider web tattoo, is that makeup, or did you find the perfect actor with a spider web tattoo?
That is actually, I gotta give props to my homie Juan. That is makeup. He is not actually a trained actor. You would think that casting what we call here in LA cholos would be easy. That you can find them everywhere because they're pretty much in every urban movie.
Mm-hmm.
I had a hard time casting those roles, and to the point where like I had to turn to two of my childhood friends. Both of the the actors who played the cholos
Yeah.
in the film are friends of mine from that particular friend is from middle school and the other one's from high school.
Oh
And
wow.
we hired a really talented makeup artist, and I told her, I wanted a web on his hand because we were going to see it on a close up, and she pulled it off. And you can't see it because it's kind of dark, but he has a one and a three,
Okay.
old English font on his neck to represent the street gang that he's from.
Yeah, so many times I watch movies and I can't tell if the tattoos are a makeup artist or just they found people that had amazing tattoos. And that tattoo being so key, I thought, because it could have gone either way. This was written in the script and is key, or you found the actor and then said, you know what, that tattoo you have will be really cool to have this visual cue in the film. Would have never guessed that they were non-actors. So kudos to your friends. When I cast my middle school and high school friends in my movies, it was back when we were in middle school and high school. They were not very good. I don't know if they've grown up to be better actors because I haven't cast them recently, but I also wasn't a very good filmmaker back then. So it was a different world. So you shot this in Long Beach?
We shot part of it in Long Beach. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if you saw in one of the memories, in the background, we see the Queen Mary. I love shooting in Long Beach. It's a very cinematic city. It's kind of a hidden gem in LA. When you see movies that showcase stories of Angelinos, uh, to my annoyance, actually, it's usually on the west side, Santa Monica, Hollywood. I grew up in Southeast LA, and so I try to tell stories from that side of town. And I've been living in Long Beach most of my entire adult life, and so I try to shoot as much as I can there. But we shot in Long Beach. The train station was in Santa Ana, the Metrolink station. I already
Mm-hmm.
mentioned Irvine Regional Park. The hospital scene was at a soundstage in downtown LA, near Skid Row. Where else did we shoot? The housing with the wife and the child was shot in the city of Orange.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, we were kind of all over Orange County in LA, and we shot it over a period of like 8 days with
Oh
a
wow.
day of rest.
That's a big shoot for a short film, but you did it right. You could have tried to cram too much into a day, and then you start to lose a little bit from each day of production versus being able to properly spread it out and treat a small handful of scenes with the sort of care and coverage and things that you want to get. So where did you what's your filmmaking background? How did you get interested in directed and storytelling?
So it all began with a trip. I was hitchhiking across Mexico in my mid 20s. Um, my dad had recently passed away, and I needed to get out of LA, and so I hitchhiked all the way from the west coast of Mexico to the east coast, starting in Tijuana, and I ended up all the way in Cozumel, which is off the coast of Tulum. And my plan at that time was to write like a Chicano version of On the Road. That
Okay.
book had a big influence on me in my undergrad days. And, so I was basically handwriting this novel on it that I was going to write when I got
Hmm.
home. And when I did get home eventually, I was sharing my adventures with the actor that I mentioned earlier who played Spider with the spider tattoo. And he was into filmmaking at that time. And he's like, hey, man, this is a very cinematic story, man. Why don't you just turn it into a film? And I'm like, I have never written a screenplay before. So I took a screenwriting workshop. I really enjoyed that. And then I realized after it was over, I'm like, well, what if nobody wants to direct my screenplays? I better learn how to do it myself, right? So I took a production workshop, and I really enjoyed that. And then I realized, well, what if nobody wants to edit my film? I better learn how to do that myself. I realized that I don't enjoy the post production process as much, and
That's because
so
nobody should enjoy the post-production process.
well, I have along the way, I have met people who really do enjoy it. I'm not
Yeah.
one of them. I'm sitting there trying to edit. In those days, it was Final Cut, I think 7, and I remember trying to edit my own work and getting really, really frustrated, making mistakes, starting over on a new timeline. And I remember being in this a post-production class, venting my frustration, and my classmate sitting next to me is like, "Dude, Apple 7 or Apple Z," and I'm like, "What's Apple Z?" Do you know what Apple Z is?
It's the undo, right?
Undo. I didn't
Yeah,
know
yeah,
that at the
yeah.
time. And so I had that moment of clarity that Elvis had when he shot his TV, and that's kind of how I wanted to what I wanted to do with my computer. Anyways, I realized that I didn't the post production wasn't for me. I find when I'm sitting there editing, although I still do some editing, but not much.
Yeah.
I always find my brain wandering and going, I'd rather be writing right now, you know.
I mean, listen, at
So
least you're identifying it, because some people just feel they have to do it all, or people just can't delegate. I edit all of my own work to date, and I'll tell you, like when you say the Control Z story, there are times where I, now we have YouTube University, we can learn. Every once in a while, I'll watch something like, and when you need to do this move, you can save a lot of time by pressing this key and this key, and I'm like, instantly in my head, I go back to like 20 years of editing without using that, and I roughly calculate that's 7 months of my life that I missed, that I could have gained back if I had just learned all of the controls up front. But say la vie. Yep.
yeah. Yeah, no, and along the way, I've met some really talented editors, and I'm very collaborative when it comes to filmmaking. I try to surround myself with the best possible key creatives, and trust them, and let them do their work so that I can focus primarily on what I want to really do, which is write and direct and work with the actors, and so I'm so long as I trust the editor, we come in, and we work together on the edits.
Yeah.
But I'm totally fine with them. A lot of times with this particular project, I told my editor Jonathan, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna give you first pass. You do what you
Yep.
feel. Be creative, be imaginative. I'm not gonna say no to anything, and then I'll come in, and we'll I'll give you some notes, and we'll go from there. And that's how we worked, and I kind of like that works for me in terms of as a director being in the editing room.
It's an interesting process, because you're giving an uninhibited creative freedom to somebody, and they're likely going to come up with several things that you could have never thought of on the page or on the day of shooting, which must bring a very like fresh and exciting energy to it, which is fun. I really need to find an editor. That's my next personal mission, I think. But
I highly
this
recommend it.
this podcast is not about me. It's about you and your film. I think everyone should check out A Good Man. If you're at home watching this on YouTube or Facebook Watch, or you're tuning in on Twitter, or you found us on LinkedIn, or you're on Instagram, you're saying, what's Reveal? Why haven't I seen A Good Man? Reveel'd.net. It's free. It's easy to sign up. You don't have to put a credit card in. There's no tricks or hidden fees. It's just a great platform to see all of this independent streaming content, features, shorts. It's been eye-opening for me. I'm finding so many great things, and the reason I love hosting the show is just getting a chance to talk to people like you, Gary, and learn a little bit more about your creative process. And I really enjoyed your film. I hope lots more people find it on Reveal. And I thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope you get some more films on Reveal eventually, and then we can come back and chat again about them.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for making the time, and for watching my film and coming and asking me all these questions. It's always fun to deconstruct my past work and see, how far I've come since that film was made. And thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Well said. You're very welcome. We'll chat